Great to have you back once again. It's now 2 minutes past 7 a.m. Welcome back to the program. It's now time for us to get into the political arena and fight it. As Kenyans, please talk to us on our social media handles at Victor Law, at KBC Channel 1. Today being Monday, it's always Eye on Politics. And I really want us to take a look and make sense of really what happened over the weekend. And most importantly, what we should be looking ahead to. Because the clarion call right now and the discussion right now in politics is service to all. And nobody is supposed to be segregated based on their ethnic background or anything else. And that is now what political analysts and pundits say that is going to be the clarion call and a campaign tool moving forward. But why now? Is it going to sell? Is it going to be one of those jackpots or bullseye in delivering the political punchlines in as far as is concerned? And why is it the time for politicians actually to talk about right now is time for service to all? That is my big question this morning. Talk to us at Victor Law at KBC Channel 1. Mark Digo, are you on social media?
Yes.
Okay, you can tell us your social media handles.
At Twitter, at Mark Dingo. Also in Facebook.
All right.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
So you can also follow him and interact, but no DM. No, you can just DM him. You can. He'll reply to your DM.
Yeah. You can DM.
Reply.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. How is everything doing in the other side of the world in Kitui, and whichever part you've traveled across? How is everything out there?
Everything is coming out well. We've received some little rains down there at Kitui, and we are expecting the rains to continue. So that our people can continue cultivating and doing other things. Yeah.
Okay. Allow me to ask you this question. There is this bridge that caused some havoc around 2 or 3 years ago.
And zoo.
Exactly. Allow me to ask you as a permanent resident, how is it? What is the state of that bridge?
The bridge is still not built. It hasn't been built yet. Yeah, there has been talk of building the bridge, but I know it's now taking us more than 15 years since the government promised to do it. Yeah, and I think this is the high time the government becomes serious in doing this bridge, because it's a bridge which connects the other part of northern Kitui with the southern Kitui, and it's a major bridge which needs to be done so that the people can have some easy access to other parts of the county of Kitui.
How long is it?
It's a big, because the river is one of the big rivers we have in Kitui.
Yes.
It's about 20 meters, 20 to 25 meters long.
Only?
Only, yeah.
Of a bridge?
Of a bridge, yeah.
That should not take government 15 years to work on. And it was just 1 or 2 or so years ago when people lost lives during the flooding. It was all over news for a very long time. I don't know what is the local government doing in terms of the county, when we talk about the local government.
The local government is doing its part, but you think the highway, the road is a highway, which is under the KENA, the Kenya Urban Roads Authority. And it's a road which is a bridge that cannot be done by the county government, considering the little funds county governments get. But the national government can also partner with the county government. The county government can do some part of the works, and the rest can be done by the government. So I'm appealing also to the government, of the national government, to do the road. And I think what has been lacking, I think, is the goodwill to do the road. Because many times, every time we have an accident at that place, That is the only time you find the government talking about the road. But after things subside and things cool down, everything goes quiet.
Okay. I had to bring it because we've never had any communication or anything with regards to that bridge 2-3 years down the line and what really happened to it. Okay, I'm still expecting. Crispus Wathimba is an engineer and a political analyst, as well as Gibson Gesori, who is a governance analyst and advocate of the High Court. Let me take you through the front page of the local dailies very fast as we continue with this. On the front page of the Star newspaper, Rigiji Kalonzo plot Ruto political revenge. Rigiji, that is Rigathi Gachagua. Rigiji Kalonzo plot Ruto political revenge. That is what's on the front page of the Star newspaper. It's a case of a power scheme where now allies say alliance between the two leaders possible before the year ends. Okay? So this is what is here. And Gachagua asks Mount Kenya voters to send home quote-unquote betrayers who were used to impeach him. He spoke yesterday at a church function in Kahawa. And that is where now, actually it was in Kahawa West, when he asked the leaders or the voters to be more careful this time around as members of the mountain. We have probe shifts to Hashim's terror links after his city killings spree. That is a suspect in connection with the killing or with the murder of 3 people in Eastleigh. That's around 2 weeks ago. And continuing here, 600 more cops ready for Haiti mission deployment after completing training. New bill seeks to lock out foreigners from Kenyan tenders to boost local farms. I think it was long overdue. But how effective will it be? CEC is among 7 top Nandi officers on the firing line over corruption and incompetence. But let's come back on the front page of the Star newspaper. Rigiji, Kalonzo plot Ruto political revenge. The key word is political revenge. Let me get your mind on this, Mark.
Yeah, thank you. I know with the impeachment of Rigiji, there was political alignments were expected, and what is happening is not new. Because Rigiji out of the government, he has to find a way of coming back, and one way of doing it is looking for allies. He's looking for partners who can unite with him in the political alignment, and we are expecting even more alignment from the other side of Kenya Kwanza government. It's not only in Rigiji's side, both the two sides of the Kenya Kwanza government is going to have some alignments, and the other side of Rigiji, as the headline of today has put it, is looking for people to have a coalition sort of for the 2027 elections. And this is the time, because if you look at what has happened in the past 2 years, we seem to have wasted a lot of time in politics. And after the impeachment, things look to cool down, but not for that long, because moving forward, I'm seeing more alignments as in terms of political posturing. Because Rigiji, being a political animal, is not expected to keep quiet. He's expected to continue looking for friends who can either, if he's allowed to land by the court, he can also stand and vie for the 2027 elections. If he doesn't lie, if he cannot...
Rigiji doesn't have that lifeline right now to fight.
No, he doesn't have the lifeline, but you see, he has the case is still in court, and we expect... We don't know whether he's going to be allowed to run. It will depend with the outcome of the case. But having said that...
I just did question on that, because the moment he's impeached, the case remains active. unless the case is reversed and, you know, the Supreme Court, either whichever way you look at it, reverses everything.
Sure,
and
he's impeached,
yeah.
but you know, he has a case. He's supposed to challenge the grounds of the impeachment. Politically, he's impeached, but on whether the grounds are valid, those ones we are going to get it from the court.
Yeah.
So that now. That is where now we are going to see to find out whether he's going to be eligible to vie for a seat or he's not going to be eligible to vie for a seat.
Okay.
But also, without him being in the politics, he can also be a kingmaker. So for him to have some friends and to look for some allies, he can decide to support somebody outside the politics, and with what is happening within the Mount Kenya region, it's not somebody we can rule him out of the politics of Mount Kenya.
Interesting. That is going to be part of my discussion. Christos Othemba is also already in studio here. It's a rainy morning in the city. Karibu.
Thank you so much.
It's quite unpredictable. I mean,
we were told it to rain, but you didn't expect it to be this early in the morning.
Actually, yes. And when it rains, Nairobi roads shrink.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
As an engineer, what really happens with the roads and the rain? What's the correlation?
You know, the problem with rains, it impairs invisibility. So drivers, in terms of their ability to make maneuvers on the road, they kind of impaired, and that reduces the speed, and therefore at various junctions, people are not able to make movement as fast as they used to. So but where you take 5 minutes, you take 10 minutes.
But I think even the dual carriage always become like a one-way.
Yes,
so
but also we have a challenge of, because of the way we have constructed much of Nairobi, there is limited grain area. So the water does not proliferate into the ground. Most of the water finds its way on the roads. So most of the time, if it rains 5 to 10 minutes, you find there's a lot of maybe 10 or 15 centimeters of rain already poured on the road, which is not a good thing.
Allow me to just pick it, and then I want to treat it as an analogy.
Yes.
The rains in Nairobi city, you know, poor drainage and what have you. How can you relate to the Kenyan politics? Just the other day we were talking about this and that, right? Today we are talking about something else. What is the correlation between impeachment and the politics of tomorrow? By the way, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Kenyan politics is seasonal.
Yes.
Every season has something to offer. So today we are experiencing the rain season.
Yeah.
December will probably experience some dry spell in January. So it's the same thing. Today is Gachagua. Maybe at the end of the year we'll be discussing something else, and at the beginning of the year we'll also be discussing something else. So it's a very seasonal
it's
affair.
A very seasonal. The same way we're talking about the front page of the Star newspaper, where now the Star is trying to bring some headline that Rigiji and Kalonzo are trying to plot some revenge against Ruto. And we talked about the end of the year, and it's also here that political analysts and pundits say that probably that alliance could come before the end of the year.
Yes, there is a possibility. Okay, the likelihood of Rigiji working together with Kalonzo has been seen. We don't know how possible it is. Yeah. But what is very clear is that the Mount Kenya region will remain very active politically over the next 2-3 years, because they feel that they are not part of this government. And even those who are in government, it is being alleged they are being sidelined. So therefore, the Mount Kenya region may be very active in the next 3 years in terms of finding its direction as a community, in terms of shaping its political space in this country, and shaping its future in this country.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Very quickly, onto the front page of the Daily Nation. The Daily Nation says that Ruto taxes create two classes of Kenyans. So it is again, case of Caesar, what belongs to Caesar. And now, since President William Ruto took over office 26 months ago, he has raided the pay slips of salaried Kenyans 3 times. 4 for those who earn over 500,000 shillings, who most recently in October, while the deductions have been effected on the pay of both private workers and public servants. Now, the latter have a soft landing from fat allowances and pay increments, which help to cushion them from the full impact of the new taxes. So what about those who do not have, you know, the increments of the allowances and pay and all that? So that's why the Daily Nation has Ruto taxes create two classes of Kenyans, and civil servants now to get an automatic pay rise of 3% every year, automatic. A quick one, Tatu City was the inside story. You can take a look at that story. And the AU elections. Raila Odinga was officially unveiled in Addis towards the end of the weekend. Will Raila succeed where Gaddafi failed in his speech to have the United States of Africa? Mark, as you also talk about that, and Ruto taxes create two classes of Kenyans. Which class do you belong?
I belong to N class.
I wanted to have the third class, but now we only have two classes. So what do you make of this? I mean, the issue of taxes and economy and business in the country, perhaps this is the president's, that strong point in his manifesto and in his administration this first term.
The policy of the president has, for the last 2 years, we've seen he has put too much on taxing, which I think is not the right way to do it, because it's always good to balance taxes with other things, because you can't develop the country with the taxes only. But they seem to be not getting it right, because we've seen even the Minister for Finance trying to bring back the proposals, the proposals which were in the finance bill, and I don't think we should be talking more on taxes. The government should look at other ways of raising revenue, and one of the ways is not to tax the people, is to reduce the leakages and the wastages in the government. Because whatever the government is getting from the KRA collection, I think is, if put in proper use, it can be enough, and we can save our people from these taxes. So the policy of taxing, I think is, the government needs to think outside the tax. Because it's not helping the country either.
It's not helping the country.
About the issue of AU, yes, the Prime Minister, the former Prime Minister, allowed his campaign in Ethiopia, and but we wish him well. It will be good for the country, because having a chairman from Kenya with the experience the former president has, I think the former Prime Minister has, it can impact very well, not even in Kenya, but also in Africa as a whole.
Okay, great. Crispus, I mean, civil servants, we have now two-tier of Kenyans as per the Daily Nation. Let me give you a quick glance here. President Ruto first invaded the pay slips of salaried workers in February 2023. And it says that when the Court of Appeal upheld the National Social Security Fund Act number 45 of 2013, and then that one came to raise the pension contributions from 200 shillings to 1.2%, half of which is paid by the worker and the other half by the employer. We all know that story. And now the president then hit them with a 1.5% housing levy through the Finance Act of 2023. High-income earners were also slapped with a high pay-as-you-earn tax in July 2023 through the act. Raid the payslip, raid the payslip, raid the payslip. But there is that debate of raising the taxes, but there is that production base where the money is coming from.
Well, since Kibaki took over, the country has made several attempts. One is to increase the tax collection. And one of the options that was discussed then with the Kibaki area was to reform the tax system in the country and make sure that everybody is able to contribute their taxes. At that point, the people who are easily reached out were those who are in the formal employment, majority of them being in the civil service, and probably in the formal private sector. Unfortunately, for the last 20 years, we've not been able to reach out to the informal sector, where a majority of Kenyans are, and they are not being able to contribute their tax collection, their tax burden. This administration promised that when they come in, they will not increase taxes, but they will broaden the number of people who are contributing to that tax base. Unfortunately, that did not happen. And one of the initiatives that they suggested then was, remember in 2022, December, they launched the Hustler Fund. And the Hustler Fund was intended to bring so many people into the financial system. And by doing so, we will be able to have now to understand people who are doing small businesses here and there, and they will be able to contribute, make a contribution in terms of their taxes. We have not seen that happening since then. We still remain with a traditional taxpayer, who are those who are formally employed both in the private and those ones in the public sector. Now, unfortunately, now what we are seeing is a trend where in the private sector, if you feel like you are spending your contribution in terms of taxes, even as an employer, you end up now reducing your wage bill by rendering some people jobless and outsourcing that function to a third party or a supplier or a vendor, so that you are able to now to manage your tax obligations. That unfortunately now renders a lot of Kenyans jobless, and that's the unfortunate thing we are seeing with these tax measures that this government is employing. The other thing that was suggested then was that we have all of these programs, like for example the housing program. It will create a pool of workers in the informal sector, and they'll also contribute taxes. To what extent the contributions from the housing levy has improved or created the wealth in terms of the country and increased the tax collection, we are yet to see that kind of analysis. But that was the whole intention. Thirdly, the whole lessons about providing free fertilizer was to increase productivity in the farms and consequently make sure those farmers are also contributing their tax burden in terms of supporting this country. That also has not materialized. So we still remain where we are 20 years ago when Kibaki came in, and when also Uhuru Kenyatta took over, where only a few Kenyans contribute a great deal in terms of tax collection. The last one was the issue about dealing with the issue of tax exemptions. There are a lot of enterprises enjoying some tax exemption. We were told we lose around 346 billion in terms of tax exemption. How that has then been reversed and now increasing the collection, we have not seen that happen. We still have stories of here and there people enjoying some tax exemption. So we need to understand, or we need to understand what is really believed in this country in terms of why we are not able to broaden rather than increase tax contributions from the few people who are able to collect, rather than increase the number of people contributing, but reduce the size of their contribution. A
quick one, in under 1 minute. Why the salaried? Is it because it is the low-hanging fruit, so it's easy to pick and run away with pretty fast?
In any economy, the salaried, anybody earning a salary and your employer is able to demonstrate by paying taxes that he or she has employed you, then you are an easy target. Even in any other economy, the fact that those economies have been able to structure that when you make payments, when you do transactions, they are able to pick your economic activity. As long as you have any economic activity that the government is able to pick from any system, you will always be an easy pick. And that's why I've always seen there is a lot of resistance towards M-Pesa becoming a tax register, because the moment you do that, then everybody in this country will have to account for their contribution of taxes in this country.
He decided to recuse himself from GMK, but we appealed and he's now back. Wakil Gibson Gesole.
Good morning, Victor.
Good morning. You recused yourself.
I'm here now.
And that was a successful appeal.
Yes.
Welcome back. Good to see you.
Thank you.
You've been so silent. What is the pulse of the country out there?
the pulse is that today is a bit chilly. And
Clearly, yes.
Most Kenyans will arrive late or drenched in rain. And then there will be serious traffic. But that aside, I think I'll just give my contribution, just to add on to what my good friend has said. There are a couple of things which we're not getting right as Kenyans. And some of these things is like opening up the lab set. That will really change this country, because that will bring now business, another line of doing business. Once that is operational, then I think that also plays in hand with what we are trying to do with Raila to ensure that it gets to the AU, because we have lacked funding for that particular project. Being formerly the infrastructure project director, and of course expecting that once he gets it, then we can be able to negotiate properly to have of course funding come in, so that that line can be done. That will really improve the economy. Other than that, there is the aspect of what we have not always considered is the industrialization. If we can be able to improve or grow in the local industries, then we can be able to get more taxes, because we'll have a lot of people employed, because one industry at least employs 300 people. These 300 people have a family of 3 to 5. You get the flow that these people will be buying milk every day, clothes and all that. So if we look at this big project, there was also another very interesting aspect which we ought to have been actualized up to now, was the issue of the EPZs, so that we increase our exports. We saw when Moses Kuria was minister, we saw him run around the country, and he did 34 within, I think, a year. Up to now, everything went silent after the successor never touched any. So those were some of the schemes or some of the plans which are very good for our country, which can be able to increase a lot of foreign exchange. You know, when you export a lot, you are able to minimize your dollar, you're able to control your dollar. And even the imports, the things you import, you're able to import them at an affordable rate. So some of these things, it's not a one bullet make it all, but we just do a mix. Reduction of taxes so that production can be able to be increased in the country, so that we don't have our exporters or manufacturers running to Tanzania. I think it's the admission, it's open that the president of Tanzania was actually rejoicing that it's good that there is a crisis in Kenya. We have never received very many investments from across the country like we are enjoying. So you see, some of those small things end up causing very big problems. So if we can be able to look into that, the other aspect which can really improve our economy and increase maybe the tax base is embracing ICT. I mean, Walo tried, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether we are really doing it right, the way we ought to have been doing it, because Konza City should be up and running by now. And that could be also be contributing a lot. There is the aspect of scalability of projects, even which are in the pipe dream. I mean, for example, M-Pesa was a very good idea. We could be able to have some 2 or 3 or even 5 M-Pesa ideas. I mean, which are very novel, which have not been done anywhere in the world. You can actually realize that we can change this country, and Kenyans have that potential. The other aspect is, of course, we had a plan of manufacturing vehicle industries through the Uhuru, where we are to limit the number of years for a vehicle to be brought in. We should be now doing 0 by now. But now we are stuck at 8. We never moved to 5 years. So if that can be actualized and we increase in manufacturing of vehicles, you know, vehicle manufacturing industry is also another very big employer, which can also bring a lot, because you will need to export when you have serviced the local market.
Let's take a break. Let's take a break. When I come back, it's more or less the same thing on the front page of the Standard. Broke Kenyans are now being forced to steal. That is also the front page of the Standard. And it's based on perhaps... there's a very thin line between the Daily Nation, and I think one is supporting the other. All right, one is supporting, I don't know which one supports which, but when you look at the two papers, they're speaking almost the same language. Okay, so we'll take a look at what is on the front page of the Standard when you come back. Broke Kenyans are now being forced to steal. And government reports suggest that there's a surge in crime, which could be linked to high levels of unemployment in the country, indicating that harsh economic conditions and the pressure to feed families are driving Kenyans to commit serious crimes. Don't steal. Tender to Lime. All right, let's take a break. We'll be right back. Sure, stay with us. Welcome back. Broke Kenyans are now being forced to steal. According to according to the standard, serious criminal activities declined between 2019 and 2020 and 2021, but subsequently increased steadily to 104,769 in 2023-2024. That's according to the National Council of Administrative Justice survey. So there we have it, the good, bad, ugly of Rutonomics. Okay, gentlemen, you've broken it down, but the standard also is saying something different than President William Ruto's toughest assignment as he charts his third year in office is fixing the economy. He blames the sluggish growth of political intrigues on political intrigues, but with a new deputy president and a broad-based government, what does the future hold? There is a 6.7% fuel prices. It came down from 6.7%, petrol by 4.3%. But the question is, there's an inflation of 2.7%, down from 9.2% in September 2022, and now this is where we are. And what is the exchange rate right now? 127 shillings. Actually, somebody said that it improved from 15 billion shillings to US dollar to 158, and now to 127. But now the question is, so what happens? They said that some people said out there that it was the impeached deputy president who was making things not to move it. So now we have this. I don't know what you think. Broke Kenyans are being forced to steal. Are you one of them, Mark?
In a society where poverty levels are high, you expect a lot of insecurity.
Perhaps not even directly.
Yeah.
Yes.
We have so many factors which are driving people into insecurity, and one of them is unemployment. Because the unemployment levels are too high, and most of the youth who finish campus find themselves not getting jobs, even after having those qualifications. Yeah, the other issue is also about the high cost of living. In paper, you'll find yes, the dollar has gone down from 165 to 127, but has this gone down to the normal to mwananchi, which is no. Even listening to the chairman of the budget committee, Didi Nyoro, I think he was trying to answer somebody last week. It's not for the leaders to tell mwananchi the economy is doing well. It's the mwananchi who is supposed to tell the leaders whether they are feeling the economy is improving. So I think most of our problems we are having with the insecurity and mostly is more on the misplaced policies with the government. It's now 2 years since the Kenya Kwanza government was elected, and if you look at their policies, they seem to be not helping the country much. And I think it's high time they looked at things differently. Listening to the president, yes, he said the 2 years have been marked by a lot of politics and politics of blackmail. And we are expecting things to change for the better. And one thing of doing things differently is partly on governance. If they can change on most of the things, the problems you are experiencing, things to do with corruption, things to do with accountability, I think things can change for the better.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Gentlemen, I'll come back to this later on so that we can also look at it, but it's almost the same thing that we discussed on the front page of the Daily Nation. My question is now, so the president spoke about the question and the politics of blackmail. Who was blackmailing the president, or who was blackmailing us? And why is it that people are thinking that the politics of blackmail is all gone? I mean, that is the name of the game everywhere. You blackmail me now so that we are going to have it. Perhaps that statement was meant for Wanjiku, to make Wanjiku feel that now, you know what, we are now here. I think that's in reference to the impeachment of the deputy president, according to me. Crispus.
Well, one thing we need to really appreciate is that we've been kept very busy by this administration for the last 2 years. And the reason why we are not feeling any economic transformation as it was supposed to be is because we've been busy with other things. If you look at the history of this government, since 2022, there has been a crisis after a crisis. They have lost 2 finance bill, even the one that has been returned of 2023-2024, it's been returned a year later. And therefore, this government has probably created its own crisis and then managed to convince that this crisis was not because of them, but one of them who was with them. But for us, we elected them as a team, as one ticket of Kenya Kwanza. Whether it is a small part of that government that contributed to this chaos and all these conspiracy theories, it is for them to deal with. We elected them and we gave them a term of 5 years. And within those 5 years, they're supposed to make tangible economic transformation that Kenyans can be able to feel. If you look at the recent American elections, one of the issues that really made Trump win is because of economic issues. There was immigration and economic issues. Most of the Americans would say, yes, we are being told our economy is doing very well. The numbers show we are helping a lot of countries out there. But in our pockets here in America, we are not able to meet our daily needs. The cost of food is so high. The cost of living is so high. We are not able, and that is the same thing as Kenya today. The president has been heard many times saying, I'm making all these foreign trips for the good of the country. I am doing all these deals for the good of the country. The situation is much better. But the reality on the ground, it's not good at all. Kenyans are going to the extreme of what you've seen in the headline saying people are stealing. People may not even literally steal, but you may go borrow something from somebody and don't pay because you don't have the ability to pay. You may go borrow food somewhere hoping you will pay with some profits coming. They don't come, you default. Somebody will accuse you of stealing. So Kenyans have been pushed to the extreme. When Kibaki was president, he did not have to say that we have money in our pockets. We could feel it. We were being chased around these streets by banks selling loans to us because they were having excess cash in their banks and they needed to lend. Today, right now, those banks don't want to lend us. And the only person they want to lend is the government. Therefore,
but what was Kibaki's magic stick?
The Kibaki magic stick was, number one, he had a very lean government in terms of cost of doing business as a government. This government has a challenge of the counties, and itself it's very big. Over the years, everybody has been adding their cronies into the administration. We have been creating layers and layers and layers of administration. We have a very huge public service that is taking over 50% of the cost of the money we collect as a country. Then we have also incurred a lot of debt, which Kibaki did not have. So this administration has a history as carrying a burden of a huge wage bill and a huge number of loans. Some of them which did not do any development in the country that would have been able to contribute to repaying those debts.
Yeah.
So Kibaki had the laxity of a very lean government. The population there was optimistic. There was a lot of goodwill also from the international community, and also corruption was not as high as we're experiencing today. I mean, then the only big scandal we had was Anglo leasing, which was around 6 billion. Today, that is a small ticket corruption case. The kind of corruption cases we are dealing with, they are huge. We had a program being launched at a very low cost. I remember the economic stimulus package program that was able to transform the country was not more than 100 billion shillings. But today, if somebody wants to roll out an economic transformation program, they are talking about trillions. So the cost of doing business today is so high. But who has made it so high? It is a subsequent administration that have made it so expensive because, one, our elections are very high. Everybody wants to look for money to do a campaign. That money comes from us as Kenyans. So we have become a very highly capitalized nation where it's a man-eat-man society and there's nobody looking for the rest of the Kenyans.
Okay.
And right now we are in a position where, as a country, we are losing out to the region. If you go to Tanzania, Uganda, and Rwanda, they are able to attract those investments that we are not able to attract because of these politics and governance issues that we are having. So if you could be able to deal with that, then we have a chance to start attracting those investors because we are still one of the most attractive markets in the region because of our human capital. Okay. That is our greatest advantage, and we have not taken fully advantage of that.
This one to all of you is now the politics of unity. From what you've had after the impeachment of the deputy president, that is former deputy. It's now the question of service to Kenyans, sisi ni wa Kenya wote, and all that, but. I mean, we are here, gentlemen. We've heard of this. My community that there's a very thin line between service to the nation and what, only that probably Rigiji made it so loud. But the politics of unity and blackmail, Wakile?
Yes, I think the president is trying to buy a new lease of life politically. I mean, he's a political schemer. We can't expect anything less of him. And you see, after all the chaotic process of removing the deputy president, you need to tone down the politics, and that's what he was trying to do by going to the public and telling them, now we are going to start working. I don't know what the mandate which he was given at the start, where it went, because really, it's not about somebody blackmailing you. I think somebody told him yesterday that when an economy improves, it's the president. When it fails, it's still the president. So you cannot tell us that it's because, yes, the buck stops with him. You cannot tell us that it's because somebody was blackmailed. How can you blackmail the president? I mean, you give orders, you run the country. So I think it was just a soft way of trying to come back and win back Kenyans, whoever might have disappeared from his squad of funds. And that I think we need to take it that whatever he says, he means it, because that's all we can count on. If it's all politics, then we have ourselves to blame and we will suffer for the next 3 years. But we honestly hope that in the next 3 years, he will be able to do something which he has not done from the last 2 years. So the politics of unity of president is a national symbol of unity. So that is what he's trying to claim back. Because when the process of removing the deputy president kind of brought that, took some shine out of him. And that is something he's trying to mend now. It's important for us to do that because as Kenya, we know ourselves that when there's no peace, we cannot be able to develop. We cannot be able to do anything. I could imagine a situation with all the process of removing the deputy president and then Raila being on the streets. I don't think this government will have survived. So it's through the act of the grand national unity or the government of bringing in the people from the opposition. That's when he's been able to stabilize his ground politically, and then he's able now to even remove his deputy president, and that is, I think, what he's trying to build on and say, now, I have no excuse not to not to do something for the country, because I have all those things which could have hindered me are all within my control now. And we have seen some sense of optimism from even Mbadi, the treasury cabinet. He was in Omabe and he was saying he has no reason not to ensure that Kenya succeeds or prospers. Whatever magic stick he wants to use, I don't know, but we have seen him suggest some raft of taxation measures. Whether those ones are going to translate into meaningful economic growth is another thing. But for some of us, I think what we have talked about here, we have had Christmas, we're not really walking in the right direction. We are making some decisions which are a bit unpopular. So how they see that translating, we are not all economists, how will they see that translating is really up to them, and we will be out there judging them at the end of the day.
So now that we are here, gentlemen, because how will it sustain that momentum? Talk about the politics of unity. And for how long will this run? 1 minute, Wakili.
Sustaining it, we've been kept very busy, as Christmas has said, for the last 2 years.
Yes.
I think it's the art of politics, that if you get into politics, you need to know how to play the tune, so that you keep hyping the people. So that is not a problem for people who have been in politics long enough. Whether that translates into real economic growth, you will always be finding somebody to cast the shade on and say, you see, it's because of this, because of that, and then we'll be in 2023.
Okay. Christmas, Rigiji said that Musione ni menyamaza, and you think that I don't know what I'm doing. I've learned my lesson and all that. So when you picked the two things, he's a very quiet guy right now. Perhaps he doesn't have the powers, the state powers that he enjoyed. But when you listen to how he's creating his presence, even out of power, he said that he's learned his lesson. That's number one. Number two, we need to be careful moving forward. Number three, moving forward, you don't need to trust anyone. But with the question and, the president's statement of blackmail and now the call of unity, how will these things play out? Because Mount Kenya is still also feeling they sent their son. So let me use that word. Much as nobody want to talk about that, but they say that we are offering our son. And now their son is back home, probably not finishing the race as they expected.
William Ruto is saying blackmail. Well, Gachagua is talking about betrayal.
Yes.
So it all depends with who buys what. In the mountain region, when you betray their son, they will do whatever it takes to protect that son. Probably in another area, when you blackmail their son, they will do whatever it takes to protect their son. So there will be galvanization of these communities. Everybody will have to pull on their side. So Gachagua will definitely take a lot of time to interact with this community and preach that gospel that we were betrayed and we should be careful with who we trust as our friend, and we should only trust God. So come 2027, our decision must be informed by only one thing, trusting God in terms of making that decision, not any other arrangement of trusting a fellow man or a fellow woman. So that is what is going to be sold over the next 3 years. To what extent that will help to build this country, I don't see. This country will continue being divided. We may end up to what we had in 2007, exactly 20 years later, where it is 42 versus 1 or 41 versus 1 or whatever it is. But definitely this country will remain galvanized between one section of the country, probably with the rest of the country. And that's very unfortunate, because we have successfully done a change of the constitution. We have brought TNA and URP together. We formed Jubilee to heal those wounds. But now we are back to exactly where we started. Why is this? Maybe it's because Raila and Ruto have been finding themselves in one direction, where they were in 2007, where they came together and formed ODM, and they were against Kibaki and his cronies. So that's where we are 20 years later. And we have been kept busy as a country over the last 20 years, and going back to the same place where we started. Unfortunately, as a country, we are losing out. Our economy is suffering the most. Our population is going very high. We are now close to 50 million, or already past 50 million. But now majority of those people are jobless. and the size of our economy cannot be able to carry us forward. We are having a lot of people struggling. And the only person who's benefiting is a politician, because he's able to now use the poor man as a tool. This whole politics about blackmail and betrayal is all about interest. I had an interest, I did not get it. So when I was demanding my interest, I'm called, I'm blackmailing. When I'm not giving this person his interest, I am betraying him. That is the whole narrative. But the most important thing we need to appreciate now as a country, we need to take lessons to learn about the politics of this country and be able to make good decisions come any general election or any by-election, that we should be able to elect leaders who are able to carry our interests, not their interests. Because as long as we elect these people who are very selfish, we'll be stuck there. William Ruto, when the handshake came in place, I remember Uhuru Kenyatta saying, nimeacha huyu aende akatangatange. And he did that for the last 4 years. He was busy campaigning the whole country because he was not being given duties as a deputy president. So even Gachagua, I am definitely sure he has a lot of time now to move around. And also most likely, William Ruto will also take time also not to fly out of the country a lot of time, but spend more time here galvanizing his political base. So that come 2027, they are able to make some inroads. So what we are going to see next 2 or 3 years is campaigns. Nothing much in terms of economic.
No, the president said that time your campaign imeisha, so now we need to focus on service delivery.
Let's hope so.
He said, how is it going to be, Mark, moving forward? Because it is now who against who? Because we don't have, initially it would be this against Raila Odinga. It was automatic. But right now it is against who? We have this broad-based government. Against who? What are you looking at?
We are looking at very interesting times ahead.
Right.
And Kenya being a land of politics, a lot is going to happen. We've witnessed 2 years of Kenya Kwanza government of so much politics. And we expect some things might change. And listening to what the president is saying, I think if we can give him the benefit of doubt, we expect his government to do things differently from what they have been doing for the last 2 years. And with only 3 years remaining to the next elections, we expect a lot of politics at play. And
against who?
Against, there are two sides. As we move forward, I think we are noticing two sides coming up. We expect ODM to be in the coalition with Kenya Kwanza government. If
what did you say?
I'm expecting to see Kenya Kwanza coming together with ODM in 2027 to form a coalition.
That is ahead 2027.
Yeah, 2027.
Against which party?
Against a party from, I'm expecting Mount Kenya to have a political party this time around.
Okay. And
that party is going to have a coalition with people like Alonso Musyoka and other like-minded people, maybe Natebea and others, against a coalition of maybe Ruto.
That is a serious way of looking at it, bringing Natebea into the equation.
Because if you listen to what the ODM MPs are saying now, there seems to be something which is cooking. Even the president himself, he seems to be, if you look at him, he seems to be confident of 2027. Because of one thing, Raila Omolo, because one thing for sure, if Raila gets the AU chairmanship, definitely ODM is going to have some division or sort, and a bigger percentage of that will go to Kenya Kwanza government, and a small percentage of those who are against the broad-based government might go back to the coalition of Gachagua and the rest. So I'm seeing things might not change for the economy, and we expect hard times ahead. Because as we can remember, history has told us you cannot mix politics with the economy. One thing has to go.
Yeah.
If you want to do a lot of politics, for sure our economy is going to be messed up.
You said something, and gentlemen, we've been here before, and we know how politics. There's a very thin line between politics and friendship. When the bromance between the former president Uhuru Kenyatta and then William Ruto, that is the deputy president, then you all saw what happened. But things took a turn, and for 4 years they never saw eye to eye. When it all started with now former deputy president Rigathi Gachagua, it was all good. And 2 years down the line, what makes you think that ODM is not planning something for President William Ruto?
Yeah, you know, with politics, politics is about possibilities and impossibilities.
Okay.
Yeah, even ODM could be planning something for the president.
Let's take a break. That's why I have asked a question. So when the president is feeling confident, so it is because, of course, he'll be running for a second term. Against who? Against who? Let's take a break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I still have my three wise men. They saw the star. The star. Okay. Wakile Gibson Gisore, Crispus Wathimba, an engineer and political analyst by profession, as well as Mark Ndingu, who is also governance expert. So, gentlemen, we are here. Allow me to ask you this question again. So, what is now left? I don't know why you don't want to answer this question. It is who against who as we move forward, because as it is, there is no common enemy as we speak. It's like the enemy has been dealt a blow and we no longer have a common enemy. But that is a very dangerous society to live in, where there is no enemy. You won't gauge whether yourself you are moving, you're developing, or there's somebody to criticize or to critique. It must be an interesting society, Mark, where you don't have enemies.
Sure, but I think you've asked who against who.
Yes.
Yeah, we should also be alive to the fact that Gen Z are still a force to reckon with. They might have kept quiet, but I think in the coming years, yeah, they will play a big part in the elections of 2027. So I think whoever they are going to support will have upper hand. And politics being politics, you can never rule out surprises. Very few people expected Ronald Trump to win, but he won. And majorly, he got a lot of votes from the youth who have not been voting. So we are expecting, even in Kenya, in the coming 2027 elections, the youth will have a say in that election. And for now, politics, 3 years is a lot of time in politics. We cannot say Ruto is going to run against this or that, because I'm sure a lot is going to happen. A lot of alignments are going to be formed. A lot of coalitions will be formed. And we expect a formidable force from the opposition to run against the president.
So we expect a split towards the end of 2027?
Yes.
Is the president aware of this, Crispus?
Well,
because he's been there before.
The way we know William Ruto is that he sees very far. So even what we have gone through today is something the president must have seen. Because remember, back in 2022, May, the people who he gave the task of making a decision on who will be his deputy president candidate told him, we want Kithure Kindiki. Majority told him, we want Kithure Kindiki. when he gave the parliamentarians the chance to pick somebody from Mount Kenya. The MPs from Mount Kenya then, majority of them chose Kithure Kindiki. But he went for Gachagua. So there must be something he wanted to do with Gachagua then. Probably it was time bound. And at some point, he had a plan to let him go. Probably that letting go was not supposed to be as messy and ugly as it has been. But unfortunately, it has been very ugly and it has political consequences. So for me, I don't think he doesn't know where we are going. He's already has a plan. In terms of how the Gen Zs will play into this, he has learned his lessons about the preparedness in terms of this whole movement of young people and how disgruntled they are. So therefore, he will also approach 2027 very much aware that the Gen Zs might be a force to reckon with, and therefore he must prepare on how to tackle that movement. In terms of what was motivating this movement, what was fueling this movement, who was resourcing, we don't know exactly. We may not really know, because he started by talking about Ford Foundation. Then the other day we saw him at the Ford Foundation office saying nice thing about it. So we don't know really who was fueling that movement. And now with these elections of the US, where the Democrats are no longer in power and Trump is not interested in Africa. So all these nice things that we were looking forward to get because of his good relationship with the US and the West, definitely there is a tilt in terms of the imbalance, in terms of his positioning as a country, because what Kenya was doing was positioning itself as a NATO ally, so that everybody from the West who wants to come to Africa, they go through Kenya. That also has, I'm sure, has destabilized the plan for this administration, and therefore probably now he's relying on Raila getting the AU seat and now being able to reinforce Kenya's position as they get towards coming to Africa. So the politics of 2027 will not just be shaped by local issues. For me, I believe that politics will also have a regional implication, because also the regional leaders have also had a taste of William Ruto's leadership. And probably some of them are not happy with the way he does his business, and there are those who like the way he's doing his business, so they may come to support him. You know, when you're a first-time candidate, people don't know you. But right now that you've been a president, even the regional leadership, the international community will have a contribution in terms of the narrative they'll support in shaping the president of those countries. Because there are people who will lose out over the next 5 years, over the next 3 years, or they have already lost in terms of doing business in this country. And they know Kenya is a place where we put our money, in 2-3 years, we get something out of it. All these narratives about tea reforms, coffee reforms, tourism, infrastructure projects, there are people who are losing out, and there are also people who are gaining. And they will contribute towards making that, helping Kenyans make that decision. Sometimes that decision is not always entirely a Kenyan decision. It is a decision made by so many other factors. The media, the international community, the local politics, how it is shaped. And now we have the county politics, where governors have also a very key contribution in terms of supporting the head of state secure the ticket of being the president of the country. So there are so many things that will come to shape, and we may not even have a candidate to vie against Ruto right now, but by the time we reach 2027, one will emerge. So let us wait, let us see how things are, and I'm very sure Kenya will find somebody to...
And you're sure Kenya will find somebody?
Yes.
Okay. Is it possible to have Rigathi Gachagua unite with former President Uhuru Kenyatta?
With politics, we cannot rule out anything. We cannot rule out anything. But remember, Gachagua's story is not clear yet, whether he's going to be put in political prison for 10 years or not. So we can only wait and see. As Crispus has said, that politics is a wait and see game. And for sure, in 2027, we will get...
you can influence from the fence, just the other side. And
I think for the unity of Mount Kenya, and for Mount Kenya to speak in one voice, it's important that the two unite.
Yes.
Whether that happens is something we will have to wait and see. And I think for Gachagua, really, he needs Uhuru Kenyatta. I don't know whether Uhuru needs Gachagua. So that is how I see it. But what I want to say is that, you see, we are in a very interesting kind of situation, because I want just to highlight something which Crispus has said, that the decision of how we move forward is not solely on Kenyans. It has a lot of international play. You see, the US has been really protecting this government all through from the time they got into power. I think the US ambassador reported a few days before the president took power. And they have been very interesting, the camaraderie between the two. And now we've seen the power has changed. The Democrats have gotten out of office. And for the first time, we saw Blinken call the president and tell him, you need to start dealing with the issues of human rights. Of human rights. Something they have not spoken about. Means that there's a new change of the thinking in the US. Now that Trump also is going to take power, most probably will also be able to. But most importantly, what I expect is that there is a deal Kenya signed with the US, a trade deal, which Trump signed with Uhuru Kenyatta. I hope to see that come into fruition, because the Democrats were dilly-dallying in approving it in the Congress. And some of the things they were putting across were very interesting things that you need to tell us your position on gay rights, so that we can be able to see whether we can approve this deal. Which things are not dear to Trump. He believes in very different things. He believes in direct trade. He believes in things which are progressive. So those are some of the things. That's the kind of arrangement we expect. Whether that is going to happen, I don't know. But I really hope that it happens, because it will change the fortunes of Kenya, and as a country we'll be able to gain a lot, way more than what the Democrats were trying to shove us into, that we are a net on an aligned, which some statement which I've never heard of. Yeah. But when somebody tells you that we're going to do business, business is mutual. You gain both ways. But when we are told now that no, we want a military alliance, we are not having any war here. So those are some of the things in terms of ideologies which will shape the country in Kenya. And we also expect that we expect Ruto to be doing more business with the East African community and the African country. I was looking at the index of countries which are doing business, African countries doing most business with African countries. Kenya was not even in the top 10. Our friend Tanzania is. So that tells you there's something we're not doing right. So we need to improve that and be able to do more business within the African continent. You know, we have the African free trade area. We need to capitalize on that, because that is you're doing business with your brother. It can never go wrong. But when you are waiting to do business with another distance friend, you cannot be sure how that goes, and a lot of factors come into play. So if we can be able to embrace some of those few things, we can be able to have a very different country.
Okay. So now we are here. We are making progress, and a couple of leaders are talking about constitutional change and etc., etc. But gentlemen, we saw how the 2010 constitution was put to some serious test in the last 2 months. And I know this is a point that, you know, lawyers like you also went back to some class to talk about this, talk about that, the possibility of this, you know, possibility of that, parliament, executive, and etc. I believe, Wakilis, you went back to some serious study.
Yes,
but
yes.
Think of it this way. So now that that part of the constitution was tested and has been fully activated, it has worked. So can we say that the Kenya constitution is good, or we still need to work on part of it, a couple of it, now that it was put to test?
For the last
because there's that debate of changing the constitution as it is.
For the last 14 years, I think we've had the new constitution. A lot of good things have happened, and a big percentage of the constitution has really worked. One area it has really worked well is in devolution, because we've had counties having their budgets, though not getting the funding in a good time. Yeah, we've seen a lot of development across the counties down to the Mwananchi. Yeah. And there are also some other areas we need also to look at the constitution. And one of those areas, I think, is on our governance structure, because we've tried to introduce the Prime Minister's post informally, and I think this is a high time now. We need to entrench it into the Constitution, so that we have this expanded government. Our Kenyan society, being tribal as it is, will go a long way in helping our country have a unified governance system, whereby we can have a Prime Minister and the two deputies, as proposed by the Bomas and the Kilifi draft. Other areas I think we need also to look at is when the new constitution came, we were trying to reduce a lot of powers from the president, and I think a lot also need to be reduced from the part of the president, because the presidential system, as it is in this constitution, I think is not it's not doing well to our country, because we're having so much power is vested in the president. So if we can spread that power to the Prime Minister, to the Deputy Prime Minister, I think it can help our country. Okay. There's also the issue of the issue of the county government share, which has always been at 15%. So we need to change that and put a figure like 30 or that 5%, which is supposed to be anchored in the Constitution, so that we don't find a situation where every other president, when he comes to power, he dictates on the amount of monies which is supposed to go to the counties. So I think we need to we at so many things, so that we can make
which was also suggested in the BBI report.
Yeah.
Usually what you see. So how was the 2010 Constitution tested? Before you come to Akili to tell us how he called his lecturers at the Kenya School of Law.
I think one of the things that we must agree is that the politicians have been able to really maximize in terms of using this constitution to fight their battles without involving the common man. Ideally, in a different dispensation, the removal of such a person who was elected would have been very ugly and messy, with street protest and destruction of property and life. But with this Katiba, we have seen it is easy to remove somebody without any loss of life or loss of property or loss of... So that I think is good. But unfortunately, it has also given politicians so much power that they can be able to abuse that power, even to remove people who are good or protect those who are bad. The same constitution was not able to remove cabinet secretaries who had issues of corruption, but it was able to remove deputy president who was perceived to fuel disunity in the country. So that also is something is conflicting. So it appears today it is easy to use this constitution to fight leaders who show no respect, who are patriotic, and who don't promote unity. But it's very difficult to use the same constitution to jail somebody who steals from the public coffers. That for me is where I fail to reconcile with this constitution, because for the last 15 years, headline after headline, corruption has been very big, but we have not seen any meaningful conviction are coming out of this constitution. So we need the lawyers and the legal minds to be able to find a way where we can be able to find economic crimes being prosecuted within a very short time, and justice being given to Kenyans for wherever their wealth is being vandalized. Lastly, the other thing I wanted to pick on this constitution is that it needs to also provide room for improvement. I think we cannot remain as rigid as here. The Supreme Court pronounced the issue of public participation, that there is no proper law governing that, and that will allow people to abuse the process of public participation. We have seen many courts pronouncing it themselves that we need public participation. But when it comes saying that there is no regulation, there is no law guiding that, then politicians will abuse that process, and we will see the same problems of people crafting public participation activities which don't have any value and using the same to do whatever they want in terms of kicking out somebody or bringing fake laws that will make the Kenyan lives
An interesting way to look at it, because if it's an open kind of book, and when the judges said there is no law regulating public participation, so there's no threshold. Could be like 2, 3, or even 10 people publicly have participated, and that's it. So perhaps, Wakili, now you'll craft a way of making your cases without using public participation, now that that has been outside there. But how did Kenya learn through all this with the 2010 Constitution and even the legal fraternity? What did you learn from there?
I mean, there are a lot of things to say there. I have my reservations on the declaration by the court on public participation, and I think that evening I had to, when I was watching that news, I just almost lost my mind because I don't think that is the position I hold constitutionally in regards to what the court declared on that particular day.
Yes.
From where I sit and a couple of people I've interacted with, there is a very robust argument that there was amending of the Constitution through the back door by a stroke of the pen, and that cannot be allowed. And that being the Supreme Court making such declaration, it's very dangerous because the courts below are bound by that decision. And when they are bound by that decision, then it means we are doomed, or we are caught in the gutters with that decision, which some of us believe that does not hold much constitutional truth in it. And I'm sorry to say that. But when you also make a decision and say there's no public participation while there is an enabling constitution, which is alive and well, it means you are considering that the Constitution is already dead. Because there's a whole section which talks about public participation. It gives the guidelines, talks what it's upon the courts to interpret the Constitution, not to amend it. So I think we lost a chance there, and that is giving rise to politicians now to go and shepherd the process. Politicians whom we do not trust, politicians whom from time and again have always made the wrong decisions, politicians whom they're the very people whom we are trying to check through I think the Supreme Court let down Kenyans by throwing down the check card on the parliament and handing it back to them to be the people to decide how they should be checked. That in itself, I think, goes against the spirit of the checks and balances and the supreme principle of separation of powers. That will come back to haunt the Supreme Court, and there is an argument that the Supreme Court now is the weakest chain in the link of the judiciary system. And that of course is, somebody can argue from both sides. But given what we are seeing, we are actually realizing that there's a problem and we need to deal with it as Kenyans. There's the issue of constitutional amendments, which I think I need to talk about. I hold the view that for us to change the Constitution, for us to make the 2010 Constitution, we sat down and chose a committee of experts. What we have is a constitution which was robustly debated by Kenyans with the help of experts. What we need to do, we don't need to give politicians the clarion call for them to start changing the constitution, because that constitution will end up to be a very pathetic one. The whole reason why we have a very robust constitution because we separated the experts, the constitutional experts from politicians. Politicians came in at the tail end to just ratify. What we need is to also choose another committee of experts. First, audit the Constitution, audit the progresses, audit the weaknesses, then come up with recommendations of what needs to be changed.
Okay.
This committee of experts needs to go around, not politicians. Remember, the ones which you have been having for amendments to be done have been guided by politicians and full of politicians. That cannot be able to help us. Such that when these recommendations are out, they can be able to take into Parliament, and then Parliament should be given a limited opportunity to actually prefer recommendations to further that draft.
Yeah.
And then it can be taken to the referendum. That is the only way you can have a sound constitutional amendment. But if we go it the way we are doing it, we're trying to suggest that the politicians be able to take charge of the process. They will always try to rule in their favor or try to amend the constitution in their favor. We have seen the previous attempts which have failed on their feet because they do not count up to the constitutional threshold. And that is something we, as Kenyans, we need to be very careful about so that we don't find ourselves in big problems.
All right. Great. Thank you so much. Let me leave you by a quote by Benjamin Franklin, and he talked about constitution as well. Benjamin said that the constitution only gives people the right to pursue happiness. You have to catch it yourself.
Yeah, this one seems to be giving us sadness.
The constitution
We need to
only
be
gives
more
people
happy.
the right to pursue happiness. You have to catch it yourself.
Yes.
So how are you going to catch yours? Tukimaliza.
For me, I think mine is to allow Kenyans to have more civic education.
Yes.
So that we can be able to understand the constitution and to understand its role in terms of how we are able to improve our lives by making the right decisions. So
Okay.
the more we interact with this constitution, and I'm happy whenever we have these legal arguments
Yes.
being broadcast on national television, it allows Kenyans to interact with the constitution and understand better. So that's very important for us as a country
Yeah.
to be more aware and more alert. I just want to allow me to just make a comment. I'm a patron of the chess game in Kenya. And,
okay.
I know, want to let the country know that this month we have so many of our young people playing across the world the game of chess, from Brazil, Italy, Egypt, and Ghana. And we are wishing them the very best. I'm just hoping that the government can continue supporting us in terms of promoting this game. It's a very good game in terms of developing the mind of the child, and we are happy that the government has been able to support us this far. We look forward to more support and wish our kids the best.
That's interesting.
Thank you.
We'll talk about that. You may attend.
Asante.
All right. Thank you so much. Gibson Gesori, advocate of the High Court. Thank you so much for coming to the show. And Christos Wathimba, an engineer by profession, also political analyst, also the patron of something that we've never known.
Yes.
Just to
chess.
declare whether he's a grandmaster.
That is something.
We are working towards that.
How
The
many
patience
grandmasters
with
do we
chess.
have?
Wakili, do you have that patience? You sit watching at that board for like 20, 30 minutes, then make a move.
I tried, but I think my patience ran out. I've left it to my son
for us
to
who
learn.
did not have the chance, we need to help our children.
Exactly.
To do it because they have early this year, we hosted an event at the Mangu High School.
Okay.
And it attracted 7,000 children
I
to participate.
I
so
was there.
it's gaining a lot of interest.
Yes.
I think in South Africa in June we took 90 kids to play chess, representing the country, and all that is money funded by parents.
Let's talk
so we
about
look
that.
forward to the government supporting us next year. We're doing our best.
Asante sana.
That's
Mark Ndiko, thank you so
interesting.
much
Thank you.
for coming to the show. All right, that's where we recuse ourselves from the show. Okay, let's wrap it up there. My name is Victor. Have a good morning. Up next is Mike Migwi with other programs. Stay with us. Great.